Welcome to Chapter 6, Broadband Solutions. This is in the CCNA Connecting Networks section. This is the last of the 4 CCNA material lecture blocks. Okay, so with Chapter 6, we're dealing with broadband. We're talking about telecommuting, teleworking, or teleworking. We're going to be looking at different types of broadband solutions. We're going to look at how to configure XDSL, and that's really it for this chapter. Objective is that select the appropriate broadband solution for small and medium businesses, talk about the benefits, talk about the protocols that you may see in one or the other, things like PPP or PPTP, broadband, how it works, cable systems and how they work, so forth. All right, so the teleworker or the teleworking. Basically, teleworking is conducting work anywhere. You can be a remote office, a remote branch, a mobile worker, doesn't really matter what it is. And you can have things like direct access to corporate resources on the go. Teleworking, typically called, I can't think of the word for it, telecommuting. That way you can telecommute from any area. That way you can always work. So if you're traveling, you can always telecommute back to the office. That way, you don't have to worry about where you are in the world. You can always be working. The nice thing is you can actually, again, expand out all LAN resources and act as if it's uh, close. Next chapter is about VPN, so we're going to leave that for that chapter. But yeah, no longer do the workers need to be tied to a specific location. All right, moving on. Benefits. You can be happier. You can work anywhere you want. Some of the benefits are really weird, like improved corporate citizenship. That may or may not really happen. Improved customer service, again, may or may not happen. Uh, Government benefits helps build a sustainable economy. Again, very subjective. It does improve flexibility, so that is one of the big pluses. Individual benefits, productivity, time saving, cost saving, uh, better flexibility for the individual workers, better health sometimes, community, again, productivity. Uh, you can actually draw from a much larger pool of workers, which that may or may not be a benefit for the community. Uh, Detriments, slow internet. It's always a big one. Distractions because you're working from home. Sometimes feeling of isolation because since you are working from home, you don't have the same interaction with people that you may normally have. Distractions are always a big thing, especially if working from home. So some of the requirements are going to be things like a high-speed internet and some type of connection between our teleworkers and our headquarters or where our data is at. So normally this is done through a encrypted VPN. It's something that allows us to work remotely and it extends the headquarters LAN through another network. For example, like through the internet. That way you can be at a remote location and still access headquarters resources as if they were local. So let's compare a few different types of broadband. So the nice thing is when we're talking about broadband solutions, we could be talking about a cable line. A traditional cable line is coax, and they'll do like amplifiers into housing junctions, and then we all share one connection to that junction box in our community, and then from that junction box it goes back to headquarters. Cable normally deals with very specific frequencies. So, I mean, here's a good map that explains things like AM radio, TV, FM radio, microwave, infrared, things of that nature. Cable uses a standard called DOCSIS, Data over Cable Service Identifier or Interface Specification, DOCSIS, and it is an international standard. Here we have cable components because a modern age cable system has a cable modem that does go to a node in your area. And in that node, through a connection back to headquarters via fiber, is where the cable modem termination system actually is operated at. And you'll notice it's no longer coax all the way through. It's coax from your house to your local junction box, and then from that junction box back to HQ is all fiber. DSL is another common broadband technology, typically uses between 20 kilohertz and 1 megahertz. It ranges depending on the type of DSL you're talking about. Speeds can be up well over 50 megs, sometimes closer to 100 megabits per second. It just kind of depends on several things. Uh, DSL has to be close to a phone provider, or what's called a local loop, within about 3+ miles. So how DSL works is there has to be a transceiver and typically a DSL multiplexer, also called a DSLAM. And within your home, you're going to have multiple transceivers, and that's going to connect the computer to DSL. And then you get dedicated wires back to the provider, and all of those get connected to a DSLAM. So separating voice and data in DSL, there's a specific type of filter that will filter out frequencies for voice and data. There's also what's called WiMAX, and this is going to be more of a wide area wireless option. WiMAX towers provide normally about 3,000 square miles per Wi-Fi tower. WiMAX tower. Some laptops have it built in. It really is not one of the technologies that have taken off, but I mean, it still is out there. Other wireless broadband technologies are things like 4G and 3G and LTE. There's also satellite, and satellite has one-way multicast, one-way terrestrial return, two-way satellite. This kind of depends on what you're available to get in your area and kind of what you're willing to pay for. So again, a comparison. Cable bandwidth is shared with many users in a community. DSL limited bandwidth, and it's also distance sensitive. We have things like fiber to home, which does require fiber, though this is becoming more of a common option. We have cellular or mobile, that's your 4G and 3G and LTE. We have Wi-Fi meshes. We have wireless meshes, WiMAX meshes, and satellite. Those are the big common ones. WiMAX is kind of subjective on speed, if it's worth it or not, but just kind of, again, depends on your area and what you're willing to pay for. So let's hop into configuring DSL. DSL uses what's called PPP over Ethernet, so it will be PPPoE, and this allows for the transmission of a PPP frame encapsulated inside of the Ethernet frame. PPPoE will tunnel to create the PPP link over Ethernet. How we do that is we can set a dialer. we set the encapsulation, we set IP negotiate, we set the appropriate PPP options like host name and password. We can set things like the MTU and the dialer pool. Not normally have to with the MTU, but you do need to set a dialing pool. And underneath the interface, you actually set your PPPoE client dial pool number and the appropriate number. So again, whatever our dial pool is defined up top, we have to use the same number in the interfaces. And that's actually it for this chapter.